this is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and we're here at the legendary Friars Club in New York City in the George Burns Room. Our guest this week is an actor, comedian, writer, and producer who's appeared in films such as Good Morning Vietnam, Batman, Bull Durham, Cobb, Blue Chips, Mistress, and Hollywood Nights, working alongside everyone from Paul Newman to Robert De Niro to Jack Nicholson, just to name a few. TV appearances include Boston Legal, Franklin and Bash, Everybody Hates Chris, as well as his own HBO series, Assume the Position, and the long-running HBO comedy Arliss. Please welcome a man who, in spite of knowing me for 40 years, is still on speaking terms with me. The most knowledgeable man in show business.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
Our friend, RobertWuhl.
Thank you. It's great to be here at the Friars, aptly named because I'm broiling in this place.
We'll see if we can do
What
something
is it,
about
162 degrees in here?
We'll see if we can do something about
Oh,
that.
it's awful.
It's like
yes.
You wouldn't know Jews ran this place. Holy shit. Whoa.
Now,
My grandmother would be bitching how hot it is. That's how hot it is. It's too hot. It's too hot. I got to take off one of my 3 sweaters. Jeez. Okay, I'm sorry. You have a show to do.
now,
He's complaining already.
yeah. Now let's start with how long we've known. Well, we met at either the Improvisation or Catch a Rising
Comic
Star.
Strip, I think, or one of them.
Yeah.
19, it's got to be 76, 77.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's talk about all the people who were around there struggling to get on stage.
Well, it was. I remember the first night I went to go see comics because I wasn't on stage yet. I went to the comic strip, and I saw you. I saw the Reverend George Wallace back then.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And I saw Larry Miller and Paul Reiser and Jerry Seinfeld. And I didn't think Larry was a comic strip person. You know who I saw there was Alan. Who's on Fox News?
Alan Combs.
Oh,
Alan Combs.
yes,
Alan Combs
yeah.
was a comic. Let's just say he was trying comedy. But he was a nice guy.
Was
Nancy
Wolfberg
Parker.
around then?
Dennis was Dennis around then? He come a little late, right about then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dennis was there, and then there was Ellis Levinson and guys like that.
Oh, yeah. And then
And then the other people that we basically fell in with was Glenn Hirsch, Barry Diamond, Bob Shaw, Larry, Jerry.
Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry. Keenan Waynes comes a little bit later. Who else am I leaving out? Jack Grayman was a comic back then.
Yeah. Later on, then there was Dennis Miller and
Right, but they were
Bill
after me.
Maher.
I
Yeah,
pretty
they
much
were.
left.
Yeah.
Pretty
They
much,
were.
I'm gone at 679, so they were just about coming in then when I left.
And you remembered it, and well, I remembered it too. It's not like I forgot, but Robin Williams used to come in a lot.
Yes, yeah, and I remember that because that was a difference maker. That was a game changer because he could come in and the act and what he was doing, he could have 10 people in and he'd blow away the room. But that had a conundrum then because you didn't want to follow Robin because that was death, but you didn't want to go on before him because then you had no act.
Yes.
So it was like if Robin's in what other club can I go to right now? Let's just wanted to watch him, which was wonderful. But when Robin was there, it was something to see, and he'd come in from that side door. We'd open the side door. Although Rodney would come in too because I'd come in with Rodney. I started writing for Rodney right away. So. Those are good times.
And I remember I used to go on stage with Robin Williams.
Yeah, you did.
And
He loved working with you.
Yeah, and we used to just improvise back and
How
forth.
many times did you do that?
Oh, a bunch of times. Yeah.
A lot.
Because
Did you do it at Catch too, or just the improv?
I think both. Yeah, because Robin, he liked to have someone to work off of, and it was. I always say it was both invigorating and exhausting at the same time, but it was great working with him.
But if you asked me, out of all the people whose success, the enormity of success, I would have never. We talked about Larry.
Yeah.
But I'll throw another name in there, Chris Albrecht.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
Oh, Albrecht
yes.
and Zamuda.
I mean, you're talking about a guy who was half of a comedy team that broke up. Now, I came in after that.
Yeah.
But he was the manager of the Improv. He put me on stage. Chris was my backer. Chris put me on stage. And then, of course, Chris leaves. Charlie Jaffe and Larry Bresner, may he rest in peace now, come in with Robin.
Yeah.
And this is the height of Woody Allen. They've just won or they were about to win the Oscar. Or they just won the Oscar. And they had the comedy, and they were the kings of comedy because of Woody Allen, and it's Rollins and Jaffe, and they come in with Robin, and they offer. Now I'm not speaking out of turn now either. Okay, there was also a common element going on involved here. That's cocaine. Because these guys were doing a lot of blow, everybody. I was doing it. So, but these guys were really doing a lot of it. This was the times, and Chris's best friend. Remember Angel?
Oh, yes.
He was one of the 2 or 3 biggest coke dealers in New York.
Angel Salazar.
Oh, Angel Salazar.
Who would
Remember
later
him.
pop up in Scarface and
Right. I don't know what happened to Angel, if he's still around or not. Chris might know. I'm sure he probably does.
yeah, and he was always hanging out.
Great
with
guy.
Sam Kinison.
Terrific guy. Well, Sam comes later. Sam's later.
No, but I mean Angel would.
Well, that would make sense.
Definitely got him
That would
doing
make sense.
that. It's best customer.
But that's years later.
Yeah.
But so Chris and Charlie Jaffe and Larry Bresner helped to get Chris a job at ICM as an agent.
Yeah.
Now, Chris had bought a piece of the Improv from Bud Friedman. When Bud went to the West Coast to open up the LA club, he sold a piece of it to Chris, and then Chris became the manager of the club. And Chris, I'll tell you, here's the great thing about Chris Albrecht, though. He knew how to put together a lineup. He was really good, knew how to put together a lineup in that you don't have all your comics. He knew how to take this comic and then put him have a singer here, Joni Peltz or somebody, Shelley Ackerman, and then you'd have a couple different type of comics. He knew how to put together lineups so it built, which he later did at HBO. He knew how to put together a lineup. But the amount of success has been incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible. But those are all good people, I have to say. They're all really good.
What was their comedy like? We had Zamuda on the show. A comedy from A to Z.
A to Z, Albrecht and Zamuda. Yeah, I never saw it.
No,
I never saw it. It was so good they broke up fast.
Right.
I mean, it's like,
Right.
And I remember with Larry David, he was one of those people who could either have become a billionaire or been homeless.
Yeah, billionaire would have been a long stretch. You would have never,
majorly.
You would have never thought that. No, Chris, at least, I mean, Larry's success is, whereas well deserved, it's the most surprising.
Yeah.
Because of just you just didn't see it coming. You just didn't see it. You saw talent. You loved watching them. Comics. The 2 comics you loved to watch was Larry David and Gilbert. Because you didn't know what the fuck the audience was going to do. And you didn't know how this one didn't give a shit. Larry did give a shit. Larry gave a shit.
He
got pissed off.
Shit.
Yeah. Like this one didn't. This one
Didn't they put you up sometimes, Gil, when they wanted to get everybody out of the house?
Because I didn't give a fuck, and anything that popped into my head, and if they were booing me, I'd just do it even longer.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of Norman's Corner, too, the Cinemax comedy experiment that Larry David wrote starring Gilbert.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. You remember this?
Yeah. Larry David was the writer of this pilot, Norman's Corner. And
Can't even find it, by the way.
Yeah.
Maybe you have one.
I think they threw it on with another special I did. It's really
Larry's probably bought it out.
Yeah.
He's been known to do stuff like that.
It was a Cinemax comedy experiment.
Yeah. So I heard it was so bad that when Jerry Seinfeld was up for his series, Seinfeld, he said, well, I'm doing it with Larry David. And they said, Larry David, isn't he that guy that wrote that piece of shit with Gilbert Gottfried? Also, we almost co-starred in a movie together.
Yeah, I fucked that up. I fucked that problem child. They came to me, actually. I met with Dennis Dugan for the lead, for the league. And I wasn't that crazy about the movie. I mean, I just, here I am coming up with Batman and Bull Durham and those high-class shit. And here's Problem Child, which is like a piece of shit to me. And being an asshole and arrogant, I said, I put it this way, I don't know if they ever offered it, but I didn't give it an enthusiastic enough response.
Yes.
Let's go do this thing. We're going to work together, blah, blah, blah. There was 2 of them. It was Problem Child, and what was the other one?
Star Wars.
No, it was something else. I forgot what it was. But anyway, be that as it may.
Tell a little bit about approaching Rodney when you were writing for him.
He had a club, Dangerfields. I just started. I think I just became a regular or so at the Improv, and I loved watching Rodney on TV. You know, he was cracking me up down when I was going to school in Houston. We'd always watch Rodney because he had these great jokes. He had the character and everything. And I thought, this is a guy I might be able to write some jokes for. I was writing jokes for some comics in Houston, and so he had the club, Dangerfields. And so one day I go up there and I tell Tony, I think the guy's name was, who was the head of the door. I said, I got some jokes for Rodney. And he goes, he's downstairs in the dressing room. So I go downstairs, I knock on the door. Okay, kid, come on in, Yeah. And as Rodney's want, he's naked except for the robe, which is wide open. So I'm looking at this guy, and and he goes, and so he goes, I got some jokes for you, and he goes, well, you can try them, and he goes, go ahead. I go, okay, I'm all right now, but last week I was in rough shape, Guy comes up to me at the airport, he says, loan me $5 till payday. I say, when's payday? He says, I don't know, you got the job. And he goes, okay, the jokes are good, but don't do me. Don't do me.
I love that.
So I started getting $50 a joke from Rodney, and then I'm just starting out now, and then the fact that he was using my jokes, a joke or two, on the Tonight Show when he went on there, was total credibility to my parents. Because my father, he's a businessman, and he owned a business, and he couldn't understand, why am I driving at midnight to go to New York, 25 miles away, so I can go on for nothing?
A reasonable question.
Yeah, exactly. So, but because my joke was on the Tonight Show, it was like, it was credibility. And my mother told me later that they had discussions. What is he doing? He goes, I know it's in his heart. And my mother was very supportive, saying, Sonny, let him do what he does. Let him do it. He knows what he wants.
See, this is something that's so weird. When I think back on my parents, and I think God knows what was going through their heads.
Yeah.
Because that was like if your kid said to you, well, I'm going to support myself. I'll buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
And
Do you
I'll
remember
win a
their
few
reaction at all? We've asked about this.
I remember one time I had already gone to like a comedy club, and I was going to go again, and my mother didn't want me to. And because back then now...
There was no comedy clubs. You couldn't make a living.
No, and I remember we couldn't even get a glass. Forget getting cab fare or money.
Yeah.
You couldn't get a glass of soda. You were charged for a glass of soda.
Yeah.
That must have been hard on you in particular.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was awful.
And then the first one to give cab fare, I think Rick Newman was giving cab fare a little bit. But he gave it to certain guys.
Yes.
He gave it to Bell. He gave it to certain guys.
Yeah.
With me, and then I get lucky because couple of things. I start writing for Rodney, so that gave me credit, give me street cred in the club.
Didn't he leave messages on your answering machine, by the way?
Yes, and I was telling Gil, and he'd pause for the laughs.
I love that.
Absolutely true story. He would go, "Hey Bob, what do you think of this one? I've been working some tough rooms. I worked Vinny's Boom. Oh, that was a tough room. On the menu, they had broken leg of lamb. So what do you think?" He would do that, absolutely. But so I'm doing that, and then I get lucky because I go on the $20,000 pyramid and I win. So I got a couple of bucks, so I win. And it was weird. As the day it's aired, my dad dies that night. So that was kind of strange. So it was, and this is all within. And then I'm gone out of there on January of. First I got called out to do the Tony Tennille pilot. This guy, Bob Shanks, came in and he brought me out to do the Tony Tennille. I was going to have a talk show.
No captain? Just Tony?
No, it was Tony. No, it was just Tony.
Okay.
Oh, was that her talk show? Or?
Yeah, it was dreadful.
Oh,
dreadful.
Horrible.
Yeah. Although I met Bob Hope. He was the guest star.
Oh,
so the
God.
first comic I meet is Bob Hope. So
yeah.
And it's like, I wanted to meet you. It's my first show. Hey, how about that? It's like, but it was cool. You met Bob Hope. And then I move out right away. I'm only there about a year and a half at the Improv, and then I move out to California in '79.
Who was your celebrity partner on Pyramid?
Sandy Duncan.
Love that.
Yeah, no, that was great. It was good.
Did you win the whole amount?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was helpful. I mean, I had a little.
And it turns up in an episode of Arliss, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it did. Luckily, I got cast in a movie right away. I got cast in this movie called The Hollywood Nights.
Right.
And I remember I was out in L.A. to do something. I forget what. And then I decided I wanted to stay out a little longer. And I was staying at your house.
Wow, the house or the apartment?
I think the house.
The one up in Silver Lake? I was only there a little while.
Oh.
But I had an apartment in Westwood.
Well, one or the other.
Okay,
I
okay.
remember being in your house.
Okay. Well, that's got to be the house.
But I remember you were auditioning for something, and I'm pretty sure it was Hollywood Nights because
Probably.
you were going to the audition wearing a baseball cap.
That's it. That's absolutely
Yes.
it. That's absolutely right. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
We got a big Hollywood Nights fan in the room, right over here, Neil.
Okay.
Our documentary maker.
Yeah, no, it's actually a lot of good talent in that movie, I have to
Yeah,
say. It had talent.
Danza, Michelle Pfeiffer.
It was all
you.
our first films. Michelle Pfeiffer, Tony Danza, myself, Fran Drescher's in that
Right.
movie, Gaylord Sartain, a lot of Floyd knew how to get talent. That's Floyd Mutrux. He knew talent. That's the one thing he didn't know.
I like his other movie, too, American Hot
American Hot
Wax.
Wax is that's a good
it's
movie,
good.
too. So I got that.
When did you appear on The Dating Game? I found that interesting.
Oh, well, when I first started doing stand-up, the Dating Game was a paying gig. It was an after gig. And you could make, you would make your rent payment by going on the Dating Game. And they loved using comics. Yeah. They used, Tom Selleck was on it.
Oh, yes.
I mean, Pee Wee Herman,
Remember
Andy
that.
Kaufman. It was a way to pay rent. So I would go on there as different characters. One time I was Lawrence Talbot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I went on as different people. I went on one time. I got myself all bandaged up with blood, and I went on and I won twice. I used to do a routine about this, about going on the Dating Game, and I remember I won, and I went on the date with the chaperone. I always joked he got laid, and then I always joked about the Arm & Hammer baking soda. I got like 50 pounds of Arm & Hammer baking soda. It was something. But the Dating Game, I was on about 4 times, and because they liked having me, because I could think on my feet, and it paid the rent. Pee Wee Herman's was always on there. All actors and improv people went on there because it paid the rent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Getting back to the Problem Child, where you said no to that.
That's after Batman.
Yeah. You told a story about someone you went to college with.
Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid and I were classmates, and at the time, I got the script, and I just thought I said, what do I, this is, and I said, Dave, I said, Dennis, this is a real piece of shit, should I do it? I was very high standards then. And he said, yeah. He goes, I wish I would have done 5 more pieces of shit when I was doing it. I wish I had done 5 more. Do them all. And he was right. He was totally right, but they had moved on by that time. And what are you going to do?
Well, we should point out that one of the writers did cry at the screening
Oh, yes.
of Problem Child. So,
yeah,
Scott.
It was one of those movies that everybody was expecting it to be a complete failure.
Yeah, no, very successful.
It shocked everybody.
There was another one. I can't think of the other one was. There was another one like that, too, that, what's going to happen.
So you're bouncing around in L.A., and you wound up writing on a cult comedy show, Police Squad.
Oh, Police Squad. Police Squad happens right after Hollywood Nights. I had auditioned for the Zucker brothers for Airplane.
Right.
Me and 1,000 others, me and Letterman and everybody else auditioned for Airplane. But they hired me to write Police Squad. And that was a great experience.
One of my favorite
very
shows.
Short-lived.
Yeah.
Very short-lived, very funny, great, met some people, learned a lot. It eventually became the Naked Gun series. But I liked working with those guys a lot. I learned a lot.
And Joe Dante directed your 2 episodes.
He did.
Future
Joe Dante,
podcast guest here.
Good guy.
Yeah, director of Piranha.
I found
Gremlins.
Gremlins, yeah.
Yes.
I found interesting. I found a quote, Matt Groening talking about Police Squad, saying that he thought one of the reasons it didn't succeed was the rapid fire of jokes were too much for the audience at that time. And if it existed today,
right. The head of ABC at the time, it was a good guy, so I won't use his name. He made the comment, and the problem with Police Squad is you have to watch it, and it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it made a lot of sense. I don't think he knew it made a lot of sense, but it does make a lot of sense.
And it's funny, Zucker and Abrams, it's like, how many filmmakers watch their films and think, oh, I know how to do that?
No, very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
And you
a
see,
lot of copycats, and
there were so many, and they would even hire Leslie Nielsen, thinking, well,
Leslie's funny. Leslie's very funny. He'd have this constant. His whole practical joke was he had one of these fart machines.
I remember
he was
shows with
obsessed.
It drove you crazy. The first 20 times it's kind of funny, but after that.
Oh, he was obsessed with. I remember one time I was working with him, and I said, I have one of those. It never really worked. And he goes, okay, which type do you have?
Oh,
Is this the type with the
interesting.
black bottom and the red top because that's worthless.
So he was a real craftsman.
Yes. He was an expert on these fart makers.
Okay, so he was a fartologist.
So when did things look up, Robert?
It changes with a couple of things. A couple of things in a row. One is Mary Lambert sees me at the Improv in L.A. and hires me to improvise the beginning of a scene with Keith Carradine she was going to direct Madonna's Material Girl video. And we had this thing in the beginning where I was the yes man to his Howard Hughes-esque studio head. And I was doing this thing, and it started the beginning of Material Girl, which was the biggest video of its time, and that helped. Then Barry Levinson, who I had auditioned for Diner with, and I auditioned for 2 or 3 times, was very supportive.
You auditioned for Gutenberg's part of Diner, yeah.
And he cast me in Good Morning Vietnam, and that was a great experience. Of course, Robin and I were friends beforehand, so that was really nice to have somebody you knew. And that was just a great experience. It was great people on that. Just terrific experience. Good Morning Vietnam, which I then audition for and do the worst for the director. Ron Shell will tell you the worst audition in the history of mankind is my audition for Bull Durham, and he said it's the worst audition I've ever seen. Hire him immediately.
Why was it so bad?
I went in. There was no part. It was written like 3 lines.
Pitching
coach.
Right.
And I spoke to Bruno Kirby, the late great Bruno Kirby, and I said, Bruno, I ain't got a hook on this guy at all. He's only got 3 lines, and Bruno says, well, if he's the pitching coach and you got the manager of the team, my thinking is if the manager goes up through the ranks, they take their pitching coach with them. So I said, got it. I'm a yes man. That's all I need to know. So then it became a yes man. So he would say, in the script it might say, what do we got today? He goes, it'd say something like, okay, we're going to put Lelouch in. And I would say, I'm good with that. And then it would say, you're going to put Lelouch in. I go, I'm good with that. He's the man. He's hum baby. So I just start going crazy. And I start doing all this baseball jive that my dad had taught me because he was an athlete. And I was all over the place. And he said, hire him immediately. And I get to do the movie, which is a great piece of work. And I get to ad-lib the line that, lives on, and it's Candlestick's line, which lives on forever. Mm-hmm. And Ron keeps it in the movie. And that helped. And then from that, Tim Burton, Marion Dougherty, the casting director, who was always a supporter of mine, she had me come into audition for GARP at the time and a bunch of other stuff. And then she had me meet Tim Burton for Batman. And that changes things, because Batman's a whole, at the time it's the biggest movie ever made, and there was a whole lot of fun. And I was old enough to appreciate that at the time. I'm in my how old was I in Batman? I was 36, 37 then. So I get to appreciate that.
Nice run.
Yeah, that was a good run. And then then I direct my own movie, and then Arliss happens.
Open season.
Yeah, then Arliss happens right after that.
Yeah. We wanted to ask Gilbert, and I always talk about character actors on the show, and we wanted to ask you not only about Bruno, but about J.T. Walsh.
Great.
Good Morning Vietnam.
We've lost everybody from Good Morning Vietnam. Not much left.
Yeah.
Robin's gone. J.T. Walsh is gone.
Well, Forrest Whitaker's around.
Forrest and Richard Portnow.
Right.
We lost Noble Willingham, who played the Colonel, who was great. Great. We laughed a lot, the two of us. No, it was with Bruno. You're talking about the maitre d' of life. He was like, "Can I catch you something? Can I hand you something? Please, can I?" It's like he was the maitre d' of life. I adored Bruno Kirby. What was great is when I turned 50, I had a birthday party and I invited Bruno to the dinner, and Bruno didn't put up with any bullshit. Bruno would tell it like it is. And I had a friend named Rod Lurie, who was a film critic at the time at a radio show. Later became a filmmaker. He directed movies like The Contender, The Contender, and he did what else did he do? He did a couple of good movies. So Rod comes in and meets Bruno, and he goes, I go, Bruno Kirby, Rod Lurie. And Rod says, I am such a fan of yours. And Bruno goes, really? Well, you ripped me to shreds in the show. And he just calls him on it right to his face. And I lose it right there. I bust up laughing so hard. He just busted him right then and there. So that was great. Yeah, Bruno was special.
People don't know he was a showbiz kid, that his father, Bruce Kirby, was a character actor.
Yeah, Bruno
he
was
grew up in the business.
Bruno was very special.
And Michael Keaton.
Keaton's great. Keaton I first met because he was doing comedy.
Yes.
Michael was a stand-up comic, and I'll see him next week. And Michael Keaton might be my favorite actor. When I heard, I remember the whole Batman thing back then. You have to understand, when it was announced that Michael Keaton was going to be Batman, there was outrage.
Oh, yes.
It was, here's this comic who done Mr. Mom.
Sure.
And I knew Michael. And I had seen, I don't know if you ever saw a movie he did when he's the junkie.
Clean and Sober.
He's great in this movie. Michael had a dark side. I knew Michael's a Pittsburgh kid with a dark side. And if you look at Beetlejuice, how brilliant he is in Beetlejuice. And how Michael Keaton, like I said, might be my favorite actor. And I knew, but the outrage on Michael Keaton was unbelievable. Then I once asked, if you hadn't gotten Michael Keaton, who were you going to go for? They said Steve Martin. I mean,
my God!
This is true.
Wow.
This is how Peter Guber and John Peters thought. So, and Tim Burton, was he was the anchor here, because and then the Jack thing happened, which was the greatest thing in the world was Jack, and but it was great fun, great.
I used to call them the comic book fundamentalists. Michael Keaton.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the people that were screaming about his casting.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, Ben Affleck's nothing compared to Michael Keaton becoming Batman.
Yeah, but he pulled it off.
Oh, Michael's a good actor. Have you seen Spotlight?
Not yet.
Good movie.
But I love Birdman.
Birdman, he's great. He's great.
Got to ask you about some of those other people in Bull Durham too. An actor who died too young, a wonderful character actor, Trey Wilson.
Trey was a great guy.
Who was burning bright. I mean, he's in Raising Arizona.
He's in Raising
Arizona, and he's wonderful.
And he was in. He's in Bull Durham as the manager.
Right.
He was in the middle of shooting Great Balls of Fire. He's Sam Phillips, and he was on his way to the airport to play Miller in Miller's Crossing because the Coen brothers loved him.
Right,
and he has an aneurysm and he dies. Yeah. Terrible loss.
Terrific, funny actor.
Great guy. We became friends. Great guy. He also was a Houston guy. We had been taught by the same teacher down in Houston, a guy named Cecil Pickett, and great guy.
You know this actor, Gilbert. He's the furniture king, Nathan Arizona. Nicolas Cage steals the baby.
Oh yes,
and he's just wonderful.
Yeah, and you were saying that you are listening to this podcast. And when I recommended
After the Fox? After the Fox is an underrated, great comic movie.
Yeah.
It is. I was telling Gilbert that when it first came out, there was a theater, the Blue Star Cinema opened up in Watchung, New Jersey, and that was the first movie they showed. So as a promotion, they had this single of After the Fox, the Burt Bacharach, Hal David single, and if you won a lottery, answer the question, and I won.
Yeah.
And I never picked up the single. And to this day, my brother, if you call him up today, he'll say, Blue Star Cinema is still waiting for you to pick up that record of After the Fox. But the interesting thing about After the Fox is I spoke to Neil Simon about this. It's his first screenplay.
Yeah.
It was his first. He hadn't had the success yet. And number one about it is he said, because it's a brilliant screenplay. It's a satire on movie making. Yeah. It's a satire on Italian cinema. It's also a satire on caper movies. It's also a thing about a guy with his mother and his sister.
Oh, yeah.
This thief, the fox, and then it's all these things, and it's brilliant, and the casting is brilliant. And however, he said something interesting to me. He said, DeSica directing it. He said, never let anyone who doesn't speak your language direct comedy. He said, because DeSica didn't know where the jokes were at all. Oh. He had no idea, and he would keep turning to Sellers and asking him, is this funny? And Sellers would say yes. He had no idea.
Is it true they didn't get along, DeSica and Sellers?
I can't imagine Sellers getting along with anybody. Yeah. I mean, who did Sellers get along with?
I heard
Kubrick. That's the only one he got along with was Kubrick.
Right.
Originally,
and a little bit on and off with Blake Edwards.
Yeah, I heard originally Sellers really wanted DeSica, and then he hated him.
I would believe that.
Yeah,
I absolutely would believe that.
Him.
Well, you got to remember, it's also a takeoff on Big Deal on Madonna Street.
Oh, yeah.
Because DeSica directed the comedy. So
that's a good comedy.
So it made sense. But on the casting, it's Jack Tamiroff and Martin Balsam, but I got to meet Victor Mature at a golf tournament. I asked him about After the Fox, and he loved it because that's the most underappreciated, possibly comic performance supporting, because he's doing a send-up of himself, a send-up of all those guys, and he is great. And Victor Mature was a funny guy to begin with. When he was he told the story about joining the country club. I'm the actor, and I got 50 movies to back me up. Victor Mature was funny.
I think of him in dramas like My Darling Clementine. I don't.
Yeah, and Demetrius and the Gladiators.
Yeah, I don't think
or
of him in
every
comedies.
movie where he's got a boxing kangaroo.
Right.
He's always got those movies of Betty Grable where there's a boxing kangaroo somewhere.
He does show up in the Monkey
He was
movie.
4F. He was a 4F.
Oh, that's right.
He's in Head.
Yes, he is. Yes.
Yeah, and there he plays in
Wonton Tony's in too.
He plays
Tony
Tony Powell.
Tony Powell.
Yeah.
Tony Powell. And Gina Romantica. Gina Romantica is this.
And Gilbert, I think you saw it once, and yet you memorized the theme song.
Oh, yes. The ding, ding, the ding, ding, the ding, ding, the ding.
Who is the fox? I am the fox. Who are you? I am me. Who is me? Me is a thief. You give your poor mother grief. So after the fox, into the hunt with chains and locks. So after the fox, somebody's always chasing. After the fox, ding, 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 ding.
Nicely done.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
then
good.
where is the gold? It's in the truck.
Where is the truck? I won't tell.
We'll make you tell.
Then I will lie. You make your poor monster cry. After the fox. It's a terrific movie. At one point, I read somebody was going to remake it, because it's very funny. I mean, but like it was interesting because I talked with Simon about it. He goes, "Don't ever let a person," and it's a good room of thought. Don't let someone who doesn't speak your language direct comedy. Do you know? It makes sense.
Seems like a winning idea. A Hollywood movie, a production covering a heist.
Now that song was of course Burt Bacharach.
Right.
You said you had.
Bacharach story?
Yeah. Okay.
I have a dear friend, Steve Tyrell, who plays up the Carlisle. He's done. I've
heard him on your podcast.
Right. Exactly. Well, Steve, in the 60s, was a young kid right out of Texas. He's like 18, 19, 20, and he gets a job working for, I think her name was Frances Greenberg, who ran one of the big record labels up here. And so he got to work in the Brill building and the other one next door, 1350, whatever it is, with Carole King and all them. And he said, it was, Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, Bacharach and David. And he said in the 60s, the two big songwriters that everybody wanted the next song for, it was two songwriters. One was Burt Bacharach, and the other is Bob Dylan. Everybody wanted the next Dylan song, or they wanted the next Bacharach song. So Bacharach figures, I'm going to top them all. I'm going to get Bob Dylan to sing one of my songs. So he writes a song for Bob Dylan. And there's true story. And the song is called "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head." And if you listen to it, it's "Crying's not for me, nothing seems to fit."
Wow!
It's written for Bob Dylan. So he sends it to Dylan. Dylan doesn't respond to it at all. So now they've got to record this song because it's in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They have to have it. And everybody's turning down this song. Everybody. Finally, Steve Tyrell says, "Hey, my old buddy from Texas, B.J. Thomas, just had a hit with Hooked on a Feeling." So they said, "Okay, he's had a hit. We'll go with B.J. Thomas." So B.J. Thomas flies out to California, and the night before they're going to record it for the movie, he gets hammered. Really shit-faced drunk. Really. And so he comes out the next day, and he sings it, and Bacharach is furious at his voice. He says, "This is awful, but you're coming back to record the single." And he listens to this, because the version in the movie is not the single version. And so it's different. So he does this. Now, nobody wants to release the song. They can't get the song released. B.J. Thomas's manager wants it to be the B-side of the single. And then they said, "You're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy." And Terrell said, "It's the only time I came close to payola. I told one of the guys who controlled the market, saying, if this isn't a hit, I'll give you 10 grand. So he put it on. Of course, it becomes this huge hit. Okay. Now comes Oscar time. It's nominated for the Oscar. Yeah. B.J. Thomas is nominated, going to sing it at the Oscars. So he brings Tyrell with him because he doesn't know anybody else. So they're going to the Oscars. These two guys who are so out of this world, it's incredible. So they show up at the Oscars, which happens to be the one year. It's the year that Liz Taylor has decided to come back after not being there for like 10 years. So she's wearing the low-cut cleavage dress, and she's got the Hope Diamond that Richard Burton had given her on her hand. They go to the party, the governor's ball. They win the Oscar. They go to the party. The only person they know there is Dennis Hopper, because it's Easy Rider time. So they see Rider. So they go to him, and they're sitting there. Liz walks in. Dennis Hopper gets on top of the table and goes, Liz! And he said, "Get over here," because she had played his mother in Giant. So she comes over there, and Liz goes, "Dennis!" She goes over there, and he goes, "Liz." And he sees the rock on her finger. He goes, "Liz, is that rock real?" She goes, "Yeah, and the tits are too." And he said, Liz, it was a broad. People love Liz Taylor. Yeah, that's the story. Yeah.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around Bacharach writing a song for Bob Dylan.
But doesn't it make perfect
wild.
sense?
When
you hear nothing seems to fit.
Nothing me.
Nothing seems to fit. I'm only thinking about them.
Brings to mind your old bit about Dylan and Floyd the Barber.
Floyd the Barber.
And which I still do.
You're still doing that in the act?
Yeah, with me on old bit.
Sure, yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Now, we talk. Wait. When we get to movies, by the way, we talk about After the Fox. The other one, I don't know if you ever discussed this movie. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
We talked about Westerns, right?
Yeah.
Where do you stand on what I think might be the most underappreciated comedy of all time, Cat Ballou?
Oh, I like that picture.
Yeah.
Cat Ballou is funny.
Yeah, Lee Marvin was funny.
The whole movie's funny.
Yeah.
I once ran to Jane Fonda at an event, and we talked about. I asked her about. I saw like Sunday. She goes, all these shitty comedies she made, like Sunday in New York or Any Wednesday or whatever the hell. She was in all those like 60s sex comedy, and she goes, they were all shitty, and I was in every one of them. And I go, yeah, but you're in one good one. She goes, Cat Ballou.
Yeah.
Cat Ballou. You remember, he got nominated for Best Screenplay, too.
Yeah.
Cat Ballou got Best Song nomination with Stubby K and Nat King Cole.
Right.
Yeah. Remember,
Stubby
there's
K.
Something About Mary totally ripped off Cat Ballou, with the guy singing the songs all the time.
Yes.
That's a total homage to Cat Ballou. Cat Ballou is so smart and funny. It is got one of the great lines of all time. I used to show it at the writers' room at Arliss, where Lee Marvin goes into this speech, and he's drunker than hell, and he goes into this whole thing about we used to, he takes a hit, and he finally goes into sense memory for something. He talks about we used to be a brand of men in the old days. We used to take 2 shows on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. Not a person didn't tip his cap. Not a woman didn't come by and say, "Hey kid, how's it going?" We did all this stuff. 2 shows Saturday, 3 shows Sunday. Bing, bing, bing. And he starts shooting everything, and then suddenly he goes, and then it hits him. And he goes, "Whoa, what happened?" And somebody says, I ain't never seen a man get through a day so fast. It was like this amazing line coming out of nowhere.
I haven't seen it in years.
It's
really
funny.
We should talk about it on the show.
My wife hates it, so you know it's funny.
Another.
She don't know fucking comedy.
I remember. Oh, we were also talking a favorite film of all of ours. And that's To Be or Not to Be.
The Lubitsch version. The Lubitsch.
Not the Mel Brooks version.
No. The difference between the Mel Brooks To Be or Not to Be and the Lubitsch is the difference between Hamlet and highlights from Hamlet.
Right.
I mean, it's like To Be or Not to Be. To Be or Not to Be is a pretty perfect film. It's
wonderful.
Me. There's a couple of them I put in that category for just my own taste. To Be or Not to Be is a great film. I tell you, I'm a big fan of Charade. I think Charade.
We've talked about that one on the show.
Charade is a pretty great movie.
And he's still with us, Stanley Donen.
Yeah,
he's in his 90s.
Stanley Donen, if you think about it, for my mind, he's probably directed 2 of my top 10 movies of all time. He directed Singing in the Rain.
Right. Yeah,
Singing in the Rain,
great.
which is a much better movie than An American in Paris. Singing in the Rain might be.
American in Paris won the Oscar.
Yeah, but Singing in the Rain might be. You know the whole backstory of Singing in the Rain? Arthur Freed, who ran the MGM musical, he ran all the musicals. Well, he was a songwriter. And he owned all the songs. He had written all the songs, Singing in the Rain and You Are My Lucky Star and all that stuff. So he says, listen, I got all these songs. They're coming off of the Oscar. And he says, went to Comden and Green, I think it was, and said, go write a movie and use these songs. I don't care how you do it. And use these songs. And that's what they did. They had all these songs. And they had
know that. That's
and
great.
they had to write a movie. And they write Singing in the Rain, which I would argue, along with Sunset Boulevard, is probably the 2 best movies ever about Hollywood, is Singing in the Rain and Sunset Boulevard. But what's interesting is, a great story I heard also on it, is that Arthur Freed, they're watching the rushes from the movie, and they realized with Donald O'Connor they had a home run here, but they didn't have a song for him. They didn't have a single for him. So he tells whoever it is, Comden and Green, he goes, go write a song for him. They go, what kind of song? They go, like Cole Porter's Be a Clown? They go write a song like that.
Wow, yeah.
So they write Make 'Em Laugh, which is a total ripoff of this. One is Be a clown, all the world, is a clown. And so they write Make 'Em Laugh, Make 'Em Laugh.
It's pretty damn close. Yeah.
Cole Porter visits the set.
Right.
Arthur Freed says, you got to see what I'm doing here. You got to see what I'm doing. And they're doing Make 'Em Laugh. And they said that, so Cole Porter's watching this, and he doesn't, and Freed doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And Cole Porter said, would you excuse me? I'm not feeling really well right now. And he goes, but they totally ripped off for it, Make 'Em Laugh. But that's how Singing in the Rain came about. It was totally just a bunch of songs.
That is good stuff.
Actually, that's how American in Paris started. People think American in Paris, Gershwin wrote. He didn't write that. American in Paris was written in 1952 because Gene Kelly said, let's put together a bunch of Gershwin songs. We'll have a GI in Paris after the war. Well, Gershwin died in 1938. He didn't know anything about that. He wrote American in Paris, which was a 10-minute, concerto, and then they just made this movie out of American in Paris. It wasn't an original. It wasn't an original thing like that. It was like a musical. They just put it all together.
We want to ask you more stuff about movies, but as long as you brought up Lee Marvin, Gil, tell Robert that Lee Marvin story.
Oh, was
so good.
Roger Ebert said that one time he was sent to interview Lee Marvin.
Oh, boy.
And Lee Marvin is sitting by the pool in a beat-up bathrobe, smoking a cigarette and sipping on a scotch. and he's got his little dog, like a chihuahua jumping around. And his wife comes home. And she was out of town for a while. And she says hello to everybody. And she looks down at the little dog, and the little dog has something in its mouth. So she goes, "Oh, what's that in your mouth?" And she takes it out, and she goes, it's a pair of women's underwear. And she holds it up. She goes, "These aren't mine." And Lee Marvin looks down at the chihuahua and goes, "Bad dog."
I love Lee Marvin. I thought Lee Marvin.
He's great.
I mean,
you've seen Prime Cut.
Yeah, great movie.
Hackman.
Yeah,
just saw it recently.
Yeah,
so great. And I've talked about on the show Point Blank.
Point Blank is the John Borman film.
Yeah,
that's a good film. That's Reagan's last film, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Reagan's.
Lovely Marvin. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about sports movies? You want to talk about Abbott and Costello and
love Abbott and Costello. We talked about Abbott and Costello. I loved Abbott and Costello.
Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Pretty great movie.
Yeah.
Pretty great movie.
And we were talking both about what an underrated straight man.
Bud Abbott.
Yeah,
Bud Abbott.
He was
we've talked about
great.
it. Yeah.
And we talked about Dean Martin.
Yeah.
Dean Martin being another great.
Yeah,
Well, I was once with Shirley MacLaine, and she said best comic actor I ever worked with was Dean Martin, hand down. Had better than as good as Lemon is, as good as Sinatra was, as good as all these guys are. She goes, Dean Martin. Dean Martin could do anything. It was an interesting question. Here's one. I was with Nicholson one time, and I said, who do you think in the history of Hollywood? This is 1990. Who do you think is the most pound for pound had the more chops and talent than anybody in Hollywood? And it was interesting because I asked Richard Dreyfuss the same question, and all three of us came up with the same answer. For just pure talent, who could do anything.
You mean like Sammy, like all kinds of talent?
Yes,
like,
but as far as Hollywood, who could do anything, act, do anything, and act in different types of movies and pull it off. And we all three of us came up with the same answer.
Boy, got to think about that.
It was interesting. Now, this is before Meryl Streep, mind you, but
is it a man?
Yeah. And he died recently.
Oh.
I'm stumped.
Mickey Rooney. All three of us came up with the same answer.
Mickey Rooney.
I was thinking of that because they one time said to Sammy Davis Jr., they said, everyone says you're the greatest entertainer in the world. And Sammy Davis Jr. said, I'm not. Mickey Rooney is.
Mickey Rooney, when you stop and think, okay, he can sing and dance. Okay, and he was in our gang he started in.
Oh, yeah.
And there's always but then you think about Requiem for a Heavyweight.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great.
And you think about the Black Stallion. And did you ever see him do the comic, that thing for Playhouse 90 when he is wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, but he could make you laugh. Boys Town, he can make you cry. He's Andy Hardy and everything. Plus, it was funny because a lot of the intelligentsia will say, well, he had Judy Garland. And it's like, bullshit. He had to keep Judy Garland away. He had to carry her. She's so drugged out. Mickey carried her totally. But it was interesting. All three of us came up with Mickey Rooney.
Yeah,
he's no slouch in comedy.
Sammy Davis.
No, he's great.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to talk about Breakfast at Tiffany's.
We'll forgive him that.
But that's not his fault. That's a piece of casting,
Right.
Yeah, I remember.
But look how funny he is in Mad Mad World. This thing with him and Hackett.
Hilarious.
Him and Hackett together are just,
With Jim Backus.
Yeah.
Now, I heard a story about Mickey Rooney.
Go ahead.
That he used to have a thing that he would get together and the whole group would go, oh, Mickey's going to do it. Come on. And so allegedly, according to this story, Mickey Rooney would go to the payphone, call his wife up, And while he was talking to his wife and telling her how much he loved her, he'd be fucking or getting blown by a chorus girl in front of everybody. The crew would be like...
when I read the biography of Mickey Rooney, I don't put it past him. He goes, he was a notorious, he's Ava Gardner's first wife. First husband. Yeah. I mean, and he's also a huge gambler with betting, and he was fucking everybody.
Yeah.
So I don't see that beyond the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. Isn't there a new book? I think there's something.
Have you read the Bob Hope book or the John Wayne biography?
I haven't read either.
They're both great, different but great.
I know the Hope book is heavy on his philandering.
Yeah, but you find out it's a mixed bag because you find out that you know the megalomaniac, you know the cold guy that he is, but you do get respect the fact that at one time he's the #1 box office TV movie at the same time. And Crosby's the other one, but. He had the #1 radio show, TV show, and movies. He was #1 in all three at the same time. And the work, and of course the writing, and constantly, and of course he starts the tours. He starts the overseas tours and everything. Basically,
deserves credit for that.
I mean, so there's a lot to. And he has this great penmanship, amazing penmanship, and he would write everybody a handwritten letter. At least they think so.
It wasn't it also famous that every one of the starlets he'd take on those tours, he'd fuck.
Probably.
Yeah.
Marilyn Maxwell was his main squeeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his main squeeze. He took with her for years. He was always with her, Marilyn Maxwell. Oh. But not all the stars. He got to an age, the end marker wasn't going to fuck him.
Yeah.
Or Angelina.
So you're saying, I was just going to say.
Or Angelian.
Yeah.
Now, you told a great story about the great director, John Ford.
Well, that's true. That's another story because that was about the Blacklist, the very because there's a movie Trumbo out, which is worth seeing. But the famous thing was like during the Blacklist in Hollywood, during the times of the House Un-American Activities Committee in the late '40s, there was a very famous meeting at the Directors Guild because at that time. You were going through all this blacklist stuff, and they wanted people, because of the Cold War and everything. Cecil B. DeMille, the very conservative, very right-wing guy, wanted everybody to sign a loyalty oath. Loyalty oath. And Frank Mankiewicz, or Joseph Mankiewicz, decided, no, we shouldn't have to do this. So there was these two camps. So they had this very famous meeting. Attendance was mandatory, so it was packed. And Cecil B. DeMille says, who doesn't want to, there was a petition against it. He goes, whose name is on this petition? Let's look at the names. Fred Zinnemann, William Weiler, Billy Wilder, and he goes through everyone with these Yiddish accents. And he's making his point real strong. And he goes, these are the people who don't sign the loyalty oath. And so I say we bring it to a vote. Hand goes up in the back, and we recognize the man in the back. The little guy stands up and goes, my name's Jack Ford. I make Westerns. That's how he introduced himself. And he says, CB, you know more about making movies than anybody here in this room. You know more about putting asses in seats than anybody else in this room. But I don't like what I'm hearing from you, CB, and I think we go with Mankiewicz. Now, it makes this so, and he carried it over, what makes it so strange is that John Ford was about as conservative, right-wing as you can get. And Ward Bond, who's the biggest prick that ever lived, one of the great anti-Semites of all time, he actually I'll tell you a story about him slugging Martin Landau, told me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, New York Jew actor came out to do a Wagon Train. So the New York Jew actor, he said, at one time he had a swing and supposed to miss him. And he cold cocks him. And he met Landau, and the director goes, I'm sorry. And I thought I missed you. And so the director said, that's fine. Can we do one more? And Landau said, fuck you, I'm not doing one more. But that he said, Ward Bond. But so Ward Bond and Victor McLaughlin were huge right-wingers, as was John Ford. But the difference between Ford and John Wayne was that they were right-wingers, but they weren't zealots like Bond and them.
Right.
Wayne, in his biography, is a total conservative, but he got along great with Katharine Hepburn. He got along great with Geraldine Page. He liked it if you had a position, if you stood up for it. He respected that. Even in the movie Trumbo now, where he's really right-wing, Edward G. Robinson comes and does his thing, and he tells Hedda Hopper, who's, fucking crazy, that, I just made a deal with the guy. And she goes, well, we're not going to let him do it. He goes, I just made a deal with the guy. And Edward G. Robinson actually who was on the blacklist / pink list, doesn't work for a while.
Right, big lefty.
Right, and what gets him up off of it is Cecil B. DeMille. Because Cecil B. DeMille has to cast him as Dathan, the Jew, in the Ten Commandments. Where's your Moses now? That's that. Everybody said, well, if CB is hiring him, he's obviously okay. So that got him off of the blacklist. Really was Cecil B. DeMille in the Ten Commandments.
And with the blacklist, it was still.
And then Jen Spader comes along.
It was still. World War II was still considered, like, by a lot of people, the Jews' war.
The Jews' war, the Jewish war. And a lot of people had lost their families, and so they still, in spite of everything else, still considered it the Jewish war. Billy Wilder there was a great story about him doing when he directed Spirit of St. Louis, not one of his better movies.
No.
But and he had to direct. It was a story of Lindbergh, and Lindbergh is this huge anti-Semite, and you're a big Nazi lover, and so Wilder said, "I'll direct the picture anyway." But Lindbergh was completely cold. He had a scene that he wanted to do. He talked about Wilder that there was going to be the night before the flight. He's in a bar, and he sees a girl with long blonde hair, and. And he sees her and they talk that night, and whatever happens, the next morning he wakes up and he says he's getting ready to get dressed, and he looks back on the bed, and on the pillow there's a long blonde hair. He wanted to have one long blonde hair on the pillow. And Lindbergh said, no way. No way. He wouldn't allow anything like that. He just wasn't going to allow that kind of stuff. I told you the funny story that Wilder had.
Oh, yes.
He was talking about I saw Wilder talk one time, and he talked about the blacklist and the unfriendly 10. And he said, but the thing to remember here is only 2 of them were talented. The other 8 were just unfriendly.
Great line. That's a great line. We had Ed Asner on the show, remember?
Great.
And he told us about Ward Bond. You remember this?
Ward
he told us
Bond.
about Ward
yes.
Bond. I can't remember the name of the actress. I'll go back and dig it out for you. A woman, an actress who had a promising career, a New York actress, and Ward Bond really did damage.
It might have been Lee Remick.
To her career. It wasn't Lee Remick. It wasn't a name we knew.
Yeah.
But I'll dig it out.
Yeah.
It's interesting history.
Ward Bond was the biggest prick of them all.
And Ward Bond was one of those people who was turning everybody in as a communist.
Yeah. And you had to get past Ward Bond. I mean, and Wayne and Ford said, fuck Ward Bond. that was her best friend.
Yeah.
And it was fuck Ward Bond. They were. It's a bad time period. I mean, what are you going to do? I had a friend. Interesting story. I had a friend who was an agent, and he represented 2 sons of the period. He represented the son of a writer who was blacklisted, and in fact, it was Nick Kazan and Trumbo's kid. So one was a son of a blacklisted writer, and the other was a son of a writer who was blacklisted, and each one hated the father for what they did. It's interesting two-handed play. I always thought that was because each one said, "Why did you destroy the family?" To help people that to hide people who were already outed and everything else, and the other one said, "How could you turn people in?" So each one, that's a tough one. That's a horrible situation right there.
And I remember somebody one time asked Paul Newman, who was a major liberal.
Yeah.
They said to him,
he came later, but
but they said to him like about I think maybe it was Ilya Kazan. They were asking him about or something. And Paul Newman said, it's very easy now to say what you would have done back then.
Absolutely. I would have ratted you out in a second.
Me too.
You would have been so fast gone. You were the first one. And then I mentioned Gilbert Gottfried. Okay, yeah. Lee J. Cobb. Who else? Right. Michael Moore. Did I mention Gilbert Gottfried?
Tom Gore.
Yeah. Did I mention Gilbert Gottfried?
Paul Robeson, Gilbert Gottfried.
I liked your Orson Welles line about Ford, too.
That's a true story. 3 best directors: John Ford.
You want to talk before we get you out of here because it's 120 degrees. You want to talk about A&C? You want to talk about Cobb?
What's A&C?
Abbott and Costello?
Oh,
you want to talk about baseball movies?
You worked with Paul Newman,
and you worked with Paul Newman.
Yeah, well, I didn't really work with him. I rehearsed with him, and I actually had dinner at his house. Paul was a really nice guy. Now, Paul was one of these method guys, but here's the thing about Paul. He told the worst jokes in the world. The absolute worst jokes in the world. He was like a frat boy when it came to pranks. Yeah. His idea of a prank was, it's like he loved practical jokes, but his idea of practical jokes was like, let's throw a ton of manure in somebody's car. That's his idea. It's a frat boy type of shit. So that's what he did. But this was his favorite joke. I remember him telling this joke. Because I once did a thing with Redford, and I said, boy, he told bad jokes. He goes, boy, did he ever. And I said, this was Paul Newman's favorite joke. 3 people are talking about the greatest invention of all time. And the first one says, first one says, well, that would have to be the telegraph because you can do the telephone because you can reach people all around the world and everything. And the guy goes, no. He goes, what about you? He goes, no, it would have to be the airplane because then you can, fly around the world. You go anywhere. The other one goes, no. The third one goes, no, that would have to be the thermos. And he goes, the thermos? He goes, yeah, it's a thermos. And he says, because it keeps things hot and it keeps things cold. And he goes, well, what's crazy about that? And the guy says, but how do it know?
And that was
Paul Newman's favorite joke.
Oh, geez.
Okay, so this gives you an idea. Good guy, though. I mean, he would drive Ron Shelton crazy because he was one of these method actors who would take something on the page and then try 50 different ways to try something else and eventually come back to what's on the page. But it drove Ron crazy. Now, to his credit, he turned down – it was a movie called Blaze, which was about Blaze Starr, the stripper.
It's a good movie. I like that movie.
And he turned down – it was going to be cast by an actress named Nancy Travis. And Paul Newman rejected her because he had casting approval. So he turns her down, and they wind up going with this girl who auditions for a tape in Canada, Lolita Davidovich, who plays the part, and eventually to this day is Ron's wife. So it's because of Paul Newman, indirectly, he's responsible. I also should mention that Haskell Wexler, who died yesterday, the day before, and I loved working with Ron. Hated him, and he could be difficult, but I loved him.
Cool.
Yeah, well, Haskell did, in the heat of the night, he did, In Cold Blood. He was a great cinematographer, just great. But that was somebody else in the movie. Yeah.
And De Niro, what was it like working with him?
It was great. You didn't expect. He hadn't done much comedy yet. So the only time I had seen him do comedy was in Brazil. And he was funny in Brazil. And he did these big takes. And when I did it, I realized he knows how to mug really well. In fact, when I told Billy Crystal when he was doing Analyze This, I said, get ready for some really good mugging. He goes, I was surprised how much he mugged, but how good it was.
Yeah.
And so listen, that movie, I was going to work every day. It was Tribeca's first film.
Mistress, we should remind
and Mistress,
our listeners. Yeah.
And I play this would-be filmmaker, independent filmmaker, and Martin Landau plays this down on his luck producer, and he's got a script, and he's going to raise the money, but each of the guys that want to put up the money want their mistress to play the lead in the movie. And it's a pretty damn good movie. In fact, the one I get stopped for by film students, Alexander Payne and all film students, they want to talk about Mistress because that's their lives. Unfortunately, we came out to about a month after The Player, which also dealt with Hollywood, and which I think is, it's just my own thing. It is what it is, but it's such an overrated movie. It has this murder mystery. I mean, you really believe Lyle Lovett and Whoopi Goldberg are cops in that? Please, it's like, I mean, it's good because of the frou-frou in the opening shot, which is kind of cool, but it's not a very good movie. And actors played themselves, so it had this frou-frou stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But the movie itself isn't that good. But in Mistress, I'm working every day. It's Tribeca's first film. De Niro's got to approve me, and I'm working every day with Martin Landau, Danny Aiello, who was terrific in the movie. He got scenes that got cut out that people didn't see that I saw that were just brilliant.
I love his tantrum at the end.
Well, he had a monologue that got cut that was brilliant. Eli Wallach, Christopher Walken is in the movie. Who am I leaving out? And then the women: Jean Smart, Cheryl Lee Ralph, a girl named. What was her name? I can't think of her name. But I mean, just every day.
The kid who plays the young writer is fun.
Jace Alexander. Yeah. Jace, who became a TV director.
Yeah. It's a dark movie.
It's very dark. Oh, and Laurie Metcalf plays my wife.
Laurie Metcalf.
And I mean, every day I'm going to work with a great actor. And Barry Primus, who wrote and directed. People think I wrote and directed it. I didn't. It's Barry Primus, and it's basically his life. And that's the best thing I ever did from an acting point of view, without a doubt, in my opinion. That one I like.
Does he have to kill himself? Can't he just leave town?
Yeah, I mean, he's Spielberg's nephew or somebody like that, or whatever.
He's studying with the same teachers.
He's studying with the same teacher. That's what it was.
That's a fun movie, Mistress.
Yeah. No, that's one I can actually watch a little bit of because I don't like to watch most of the movies. Cobb is one I can watch, but only for I think back to other things. Cobb is a very dark movie.
Did Ty Cobb really beat the hell out of a guy who had no hands?
Absolutely.
Where he had two fingers?
Absolutely. He was quadriplegic.
Yeah.
Quadriplegic, had no arms and had legs. And by the way, whenever I hear about this Hall of Fame crap, Ty Cobb is a racist, a bigot, a Klansman, killed a man, beat up a man with no arms and no legs, threw games for money, And he's the first person they put in the Hall of Fame. He's the first person. So when I hear this steroid stuff, it's like, please.
Right.
Please. What is this you're talking about? He's the first guy in the Hall of Fame. Ty Cobb, the worst human being that ever lived. Wife beater, everything.
And good trivia about Cobb is the real Crash Davis shows up. He has a small.
No, that's in Bull Durham.
The guy that Crash Davis was based on. Shows up
it was Crash Davis.
The actual Crash Davis shows up in Cobb.
Well, the story, what happened was with Bull Durham is that Ron got this name out of nowhere. He just looked up in a book, Crash Davis.
Good story.
And so he named him Crash Davis. Thinking the guy's dead 100 years. Well, first day of the scene is the scene with Susan Sarandon and Kevin Costner. And they go, Ron, there's somebody here who wants to see you. Who is he? He goes, it says he's Crash Davis. And this guy showed up, very in shape guy, about maybe about 60 at the time, and he says, I had no idea there was a real Crash Davis. He goes, if we're going to use your name and stuff like this, is there any problem? He goes, I just want to get one question. Do I get the girl? And Ron said, yes, you do, and that's her right there. There's another church right there. That's a true story.
Yeah.
By the way, you know who I talked about? Were you a fan of Ealing Studio Comedies?
Yeah, well, Lavender Hill Mob and all that stuff. Yeah, sure.
I was talking with Ian McKellen recently, and because I'm a huge fan of Alistair Sim.
Oh, yeah.
Who is a definitive Scrooge.
Yes.
I mean, without a doubt, he is the
Great
definitive
Scrooge.
And
I like Mr. Magoo.
Right. But he's also, did you ever see The Ruling Class with Peter O'Toole?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Alistair Sim is the priest.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is that, when we were shooting Batman, we shot at Pinewood Studios. There would be this huge pictures of all their movies up there, and there was Sim, and I would talk to Jack. Jack would go, Nicholson would go, Sim. So years later, a couple of years ago, they had that movie 9 came out with Daniel Day-Lewis, and for some reason, I'm at Daniel Day-Lewis's table, and what am I going to talk to this guy about? What am I going to talk? But then I remembered that his uncle or father ran Ealing Studios. He was like the president or something like that. And I said, were you a fan of Alistair Sim? And he lit up. And so suddenly we had common ground. We talked about Ealing Studios.
That's great.
I mean, because you have now, what's interesting is they went to, you talk about the Lady Killers, right?
Yeah. Well, Lavender Hill Mob and the Lady Killers.
The Lady Killers, they went to Alistair Sim to play the lead. And he passed on it. So Alec Guinness takes the part. But who does he look like in makeup? It's Alistair Sim. He puts the buck teeth in there. Right. And it's Alistair Sim. And McKellen was telling me he directed Sim twice. And he said Sim only liked to be around young people. He believed that you should not have the vote after the age of 30. He said he always wanted to be around young people all the time. He was really dotty, out there. But he said, he had he was such a character. I mean, because I love those movies. The Lavender Hill Mob.
Oh, yeah, they're all good. What's the one that went?
Whiskey
Galore. Man in the White Suit.
Man in the White Suit.
Yeah,
There's one,
The
Heavens
good.
Above, where they shoot sellers up into space and stuff like that. Speaking, I heard you mention The Loved One. Who mentioned The Loved One?
Oh, we talked about it on a previous show. Yeah, it's a film I wanted to love, and it's so uneven.
It's uneven. It's pretty dark, but it's very funny.
You can't beat that cast.
It's very funny.
Yeah, we're going to invite Robert Morse on the show.
What's his Bob Morse and Winters.
Yeah,
and
Steiger. And Steiger.
Steiger's Mr. Joyboy.
Yes.
Joyboy.
I once played cards with Steiger.
Oh.
I played cards with Steiger. He was part of this game I was part of, which I still play to this day. And talking about Lee Marvin.
Yeah.
And so the night before, I played cards with Steiger. I'm sitting next to Steiger.
Oh, I think I know.
The night before, there was a special on Lee Marvin. So I'm sitting next to Rod. I go, Rod, did you know Lee Marvin? He goes, no. But he beat me out for the Oscar one year. And I go, Cat Ballou, great movie. He goes, I can see him getting pissed. He goes, did you think that performance was better than mine in The Pawnbroker? I said, he got more laughs. So I could see him really get pissed off, but I had an ace in my hole. I go, besides, you won the next year, didn't you? And he goes, yeah. He
won for the Heat of the Night.
The Heat of the Night was the next year.
Yeah.
So, but Steiger was, he was a trip. I mean, he was Steiger.
Did you ever meet him, Gilbert? I know you're such a fan.
Oh, I did meet him once at, I think it was backstage at Politically Incorrect. And he told me that story, like, in the cab scene and on the waterfront.
Yeah, he's pissed.
That you're supposed to like sit behind the camera and read your lines
off camera when you're doing your side.
Yeah.
You shoot the master shot, the 2-shot, in the only cab in the world that ever had Venetian blinds. And I mean, did you ever see a cab in the history of the world that had Venetian blinds only on the waterfront? So, and you do the 2-shot, and they covered Marlon's side, and of course Steiger's reading the off camera. When it comes time to shoot the other side, Brando takes off, right?
Yeah. And Steiger looks at me in that intense way where his eyes open up and he goes, I didn't speak to him for 20 years after that.
I love your impression.
Did you ever see him on Bob Costas' later show?
Oh, yeah.
One of the great, when he loses it on the show.
Yeah.
And he's talking about depression. And he goes, let me tell you something about depression. Let me tell you something. When you have depression, you lose it in many ways. You lose it in many ways. I'm Al Capone. I'm Al Capone.
I got that on VHS somewhere.
I remember
it
they asked George Siegel, who worked with him on No Way to Treat a Lady.
Good movie.
You like
Yes.
that?
Underrated
Yes.
movie.
We talked about that on the
Very
show.
funny movie.
Fun movie.
Who wrote it?
William Goldman.
William Goldman.
Yeah, fun movie.
Yes.
But I remember that
Lee
when
Remick.
they
Very
asked
sexy.
George
Underrated
Siegel,
actress.
Yes.
George Siegel goes.
He plays in the card game, too.
Yeah, they said, I'll have to ask you about him. George Siegel, they said, what was it like working with Steiger? And he goes, well, Steiger was a force of nature.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like O'Toole. He's in one movie and everybody else is in somebody else.
Yeah.
James Coburn told me the same thing about working with Steiger.
Yeah.
And I love James Coburn. The last thing he did was Arliss. I had him, for years I had known Jimmy, and I wanted him because he was a big pothead, so we got along very well. So, wait. I got to tell you Martin Landau's story, pothead. Great story about Steve McQueen. So Jimmy and I, so Jim played a fictionalized version of DiMaggio. Yeah, I forgot what his name was. What the hell was his name? It wasn't the Splendid Splinter. I forgot. I can't think of it. But it was a fictionalized version. But he was DiMaggio. It was a great, dark, good episode. And but he had talked about Steiger too.
Yeah.
But the question was about pothead. So Landau, Marty, and I were talking about it. He was talking about great potheads of the times. And he said he goes, me and McQueen, they're doing Nevada Smith. Remember the movie Nevada Smith?
Oh, yes, sure.
Well, he says, we're doing this movie and we're done for the day. And so we're in McQueen's this trailer, and we're just getting high. And this is back in the 60s, so even though you still got a lot of trouble, they left you alone, but you didn't do this on the street. There were still laws and everything.
Yeah.
It's really. And he says, so we're done for the day, and we're higher than a kite. And so I'm leaving, and Billow's a smoker coming out, and I'm walking back, and suddenly the director, I see Henry Hathaway, who was one of these old-time true grit, old-timey tough motherfucker directors, took no shit, just walking towards us. And I go, Hank, something out? He goes, yeah, we finished early. I want to do this 2-page scene, just a bunch of dialogue scene with Steve today. By the end of the day, they're just a two-hander. I'm sitting there, and Marty goes, let me tell him, okay? So he goes and he goes, you're not going to, open up billows of smoke, and he says, you're not going to believe this. Yeah, Hathaway wants to shoot this 2-page scene. And he goes, okay. And McQueen took the page like this, and he saw his name, and he crossed out every piece of dialogue he had like this. So the guy sat down, and the guy would say, I hear you've been looking at me, looking for me. And McQueen would just smile. His eyes are redder than shit. And he goes, and just kind of smiles and nods his head. And the guy would say, well, I'm here. And he said, he did the whole scene. He goes, you got something to say to me? And McQueen's just smiling away, saying nothing. He said, fuck if the scene doesn't work. He says, he says, because that's movies. You show tight shots, you show reactions. He said, but he cut out every word of dialogue in the scene.
Wow.
Yeah, because he wasn't going to remember it anyway. So he did that whole thing that way.
Landau's so great in Mistress, too.
Landau's great.
Yeah, Jack Roth.
Marty had that run where he had done the Woody Allen movie,
The Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Great in that.
Yeah.
Is that I put that in the top 5 Woody Allen movies by far.
Oh, yes.
Wonderful.
That's still, I asked you about movies, if it's on, I'll go right into.
Oh, yeah.
That one. He also told me how they fired Stephen Hill in the movie, too, Landau. Jerry Orbach wasn't his brother to begin with.
Yeah.
It was Stephen Hill, and he and Woody didn't get along, so he was fired, and Jerry Orbach came in. He had that, then he did, he had another one. He did Tucker.
Yeah.
And then he had Mistress, and then he has Ed Wood.
Yeah.
And so he has, and he was talking. He was asking me about Tim because I had done Batman with Tim, and so he's about to work with Tim with Ed Wood, and he's the movie.
Oh yeah,
he's
wonderful.
Ed Wood. Yeah.
He's wonderful.
Yeah.
Show business is funny, isn't it? One day you're in the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island, and the next day you're winning the Oscar.
It is amazing. Some people. I mean, I'm a member of the Oscars, so I can go off on.
And you've written two Oscar shows.
Go off on the Oscars.
Well, here's the thing about. But what's funny? As a member of the Academy, they tell you it's hysterical here. Do not divulge who you voted for.
Yeah.
Do not divulge. Now you got every person in Hollywood is a political activist, talking about Obama or this one. You can talk about who you vote for president, but God forbid you should mention that's who you voted for the Oscar for, right? So I have a whole thing. So I love the Oscars. I mean, it's fun. But I have a whole take on who I vote for. And you have to remember that this is not some benevolent organization. I mean, I don't mean the Academy. The Academy is a benevolent organization. But the Oscar Awards, I remember how it started. It started in, 1926, 27. And it was a dinner that the Academy, which were the 5 studios, put together to invite everybody in to try to bust the unions, saying, you don't have to unionize. We will take care of you. You don't need a writer's guild. You don't need a director's guild. You don't need the actor's guild. We will take care of you. And at the end of the night, the last 15 minutes, they gave out these medals, as they said. So anyway, Louis B. Mayer said, my God, if you give out medals, they'll show up for anything. So this did not start by some great artistic achievement thing. It started out because they wanted to bust the unions. But as Tommy Lee Jones, when we were doing Cobb, he was up that year, and he had lost the year before for JFK, and then he was up this year for the Fugitive, and that was a cranky week because he's a very competitive guy. And the whole talk around when we're doing Cobb, they go, boy, if Tommy doesn't win, he's going to be suicidal. I said, fuck that. If Tommy doesn't win, he's going to be homicidal. But we talked about that. Those statues, this little thing is worth a lot of money. These are worth money, a lot of money. And don't think, because if they weren't, you don't really think that the studios would be spending tens of millions of dollars on all these campaigns, or tens of millions of dollars on lunches and dinners that I go to. And part of this, these are worth because they're going to get money out of this thing. You say Best Picture, that's worth another $40-50 million. You get I have a friend who runs one of the studios, says if I can get a better Best Actor nomination, that's $10 million more for my studio. If I can get this. So these things are worth money, okay? And my dad, who was not in the business, used to say, I don't understand. How can somebody be the best actor one year and not the best actor the next year? Did he forget how to act?
Good question.
My dad was, and he goes, I'll tell you who the best, let everybody play the same part, and I'll tell you who the best actor is. And I would say, Dad, not even then. You could have different interpretations of the same thing. So to think that someone is the best is ludicrous. These are all good actors and everything. But here's my criteria on voting, because it is. And by the way, you don't get there unless you're good. So at the very least, you gave a good performance. You're not going to say best. You gave an exemplary performance. So here's how I vote. Number one, who's my friend? That's number one, first and foremost. And this is my reason for that. And here's the reason for that. Because these things are worth money, I want my friends to have security with their families. You get an Oscar nomination, that means you will have hospitalization the rest of your life. Your family will have hospitalization the rest of its life. That is also, okay. Also, you've paid for it probably. If you're a friend of mine, you've probably paid your dues. Okay, so who's my friend is first and foremost. I want my friends to do better. I don't care about, you can't tell me this performance is better than that performance. You can't do it. You just can't. So I want my friends to do well. That's A. B. Hard, fast rule. No kids. No kids. There is under no circumstances, zero tolerance, no kids. None. Zero. I give a fuck if a 12-year-old kid from Australia gets an Oscar. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You're talking about people who have worked their whole lives, studied what the cattle calls their whole life, got rejected their whole life, and you're giving it to a fucking kid like that 6-year-old I sat next to last year at a dinner from that movie in the swamp. What was that movie?
Oh,
the Beast of the Southern Wild.
Right, that's right.
I'm sitting next to a 6-year-old kid who's playing on fucking, and she gets nominated for a fucking Oscar.
What's her name? Quahenzivana something Wallace?
It's like she's playing and doing fucking things. I'm sitting next to her. And you're giving her the Oscar, and she gets fucking nominated for an Oscar. Are you out of your fucking mind? So no kids. If and you can't give me an example where I've ever missed one. If I'm going to miss Jodie Foster, you know what? She'll grow up and become Jodie Foster, and I'll vote for her.
Tatum O'Neal.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's an example.
Right.
Tatum O'Neal.
Right.
I mean, no. What about Justin Henry from The Champ, or the girl who was in The Goodbye Girl?
Yeah.
It's like you're taking away a spot from someone who has paid their dues. So there's no kids there's no way, shape, fucking form that I would ever vote for for a kid. Also, I'm not voting for rookies. I'm not voting for anybody first time out. There's no reason to. There is no reason. It's like, let me ask you a question. A guy comes up to bat the first time, hits a home run. You put him in the Hall of Fame? No. Let me see a couple of more at-bats here, It's like, because if that's the case, Sandra Locke would have won an Oscar. Remember when she got...
The Heart is a Lonely Hunter.
Sandra Locke got an Oscar nomination. There's not too many worse actresses ever than Sandra Locke. Okay? So no rookies. No fucking rookies. Okay? Nobody who wins also for singing a song. It's like, we've had how many people now sing a song and win an Oscar? Jennifer Hudson sang a song. She won an Oscar. That's all she did. She sang a song. Wait. And who's the wait a minute, I'm not done. Wait a minute. Anne Hathaway sang a song. Sang a song.
She also shaved her head and
she sang a song.
Some
She's
weight.
out of the movie in 10 minutes. She sang a song. Now, I'm not voting for anyone anymore. Then you got the Jennifers that come along. Jennifer Hudson, Jennifer Holliday, Jennifer, who's the other one? Jennifer, there's another Jennifer, I'm losing here. There's another Jennifer. Jennifer Hudson, Jennifer Holliday. Who's the one who was in A Beautiful Life? What's her name?
Oh, Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly. Okay. Like, it's like, just say none of this fucking Jennifer shit. Do you know? It's like, come on, pay your fucking... Like, I can tell you who I'm voting for right now for the Oscars, right? I'll tell you who I voted for. I'll break tradition, please forgive me. I'm voting for Lily Tomlin. I mean, did you see the movie Grandma?
No.
Okay, she's really good in it. I mean, now, you would say, is that an Oscar-winning performance? She's really good in the movie, and she's Lily fucking Tomlin.
Right.
These are Lifetime Achievement
That's how
Awards.
you see them. I was just going to ask that.
I totally see them,
Yeah.
because...
Body of work.
Because if you win an Oscar, the first line of your obituary is already written.
Right.
So if that's not a Lifetime Achievement Award, I don't know what is. It's like, this is, I mean, Dr. Hang Nor. Fuck, what is this shit? Dr. Hang Nor.
Well, the poor guy got murdered.
I mean, it's like, really? Come on, can we have this bleeding heart shit? I mean, come on, Dr. Hang Nor. I mean, come on, give me a fucking break.
Where do you stand on the GIMP rule?
On the what?
The GIMP factor.
Again, I take that into consideration. But if it's a guy with a track record, a body of work, it's a little bit different than if it's, a first-time Sandra Locke thing. Or
Right.
wait, who was another one? There was another one. But it's like, not me. It's like, and also, up until last year, you had 3 of the 4 winners. If Michael Keaton had one, all 4 would have been over 50, and that has never happened. There was a run at one point where there wasn't an actress or a Best Actress winner who was over 35. There was like a 10-year run without one of them, and Judi Dench changed it, and Helen Mirren. That's the other thing I try down the line is, if I don't have to, no Brits. That's another thing. If I no Brits, because we live in this world. We have this bullshit idea that because somebody speaks with a Brit posh accent, that they're they know how to act.
Oh yeah,
it's like
That's what the BAFTAs are for.
It's like now again, I have voted for Brits. I will. Some of them are my friends, so I vote for. But as a rule, I keep it in America.
Okay. Peter Sellers for being there, or Ben Kingsley for? Wait a minute. Do I have this right? Nope. Hang on. It was Peter Sellers for being there, or Dustin Hoffman for Kramer versus Kramer.
Peter Sellers.
Okay, and then
had Dustin Hoffman won before though?
He won for Midnight Cowboy.
No, he didn't.
No.
Oh, you're right. You're right. So that was his first one.
If that's his first one, I can understand it.
Right.
Because he's Dustin Hoffman.
And the movie. But I'll go another way. I'll say Peter Sellers for Strangelove or Rex Harrison for My Fair Lady.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, who are some of the ones that, like Sandra Locke, who you go, who the fuck? How did they
Every
win that
year.
award?
It's every year.
There's always one.
It's every year with But that said, though, the Academy does a lot of other stuff that's really good. I mean, that people don't see. The library that they do work, the exhibitions are great. The screenings are great. They have talks all the time. They do a lot of stuff that people don't see. They know the Oscars and it pays the rent. So I get that. But, the Oscars is like the Hall of Fame. It's not the pearly gates here. So I'm voting for my friends. And I'm voting for I want them to do well. It's like, but no fucking kids.
I love that.
They should have a juvenile award, just as if they should have an award for comedy.
Right.
They absolutely should have because if you look, I guarantee you over the next week, you're going to see every 10 best list in the next couple of days. I guarantee you there'll be maybe 2 comedies on a 10 best list. Maybe. And then they're going to come out with their 10 worst lists.
Always comedies.
And there's going to be 7 comedies.
Right.
Because everybody
Always.
knows how to do comedy.
Yeah, I've heard you speak about this.
Yeah, everybody knows how to do comedy, but everybody knows it's much harder. But on your 10 best, so why don't you have your best animated films, you have best musicals, best documentaries. Why not have comedies? Now, I talked all this over with Ron Howard and Harvey Weinstein, and from a marketing point of view, it's much smarter. If I could put best comedy on my marketing, that's more money. It's like, and you know why they won't do it?
I know why. Because the Golden Globes does
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the Golden Globes do it. And they would never, how far be it to take an idea.
Right.
To me, it's like a good idea no matter where it comes from.
Well, we've talked about this. There's very few comedies that get that kind of respect and recognition, and very few have won Best Picture.
Very few, and are usually romantic comedies. I
Right.
can't think of a balls-out comedy that ever did. I mean,
What would you call The Apartment? Comedy drama.
Yes, yeah, that's and Shakespeare in Love.
Annie Hall.
It's just like funny actors or comedians
Never.
in movies. They want to prove themselves by doing a dramatic part, because then you'll get respect.
Right, exactly. Hanks did all his comedies. It wasn't until he, played Forrest Gump and he did Philadelphia that he really got the props there. And big. Well, big.
And AIDS is very big.
Well,
it
yeah.
used to be big.
Well,
in
it's still.
movies.
Well, it depends. If you're talking Tonys,
Oh, well, then you're.
I'm in the theater world now, so it's like trying to beating. There's 2 things that are really having a challenge. Beating an AIDS-related thing at the Tonys is like beating the Holocaust at the Oscars.
There you go.
It's like you're swimming upstream there. A story to that effect. My partner for Arliss, Mike Tolan, had written and directed a documentary on Hank Aaron about 20 years ago called Chasing the Dream. It got nominated for the documentary Best Picture. However, at the same time, he was getting all the arrangements done. And I said, this is going to cost more again because you got to get the car, your wife's got to get a gown. I mean, the tickets are $500. It costs a fortune to go to the Oscars. And I go, Mike, you realize there's an Anne Frank documentary up against you here. It's like, you have no chance.
None.
You have 0 chance. So he goes to the awards, and of course Hank Aaron's there with him. And Hank, being a ball player and competitive, but a nice man, goes, Mike, I saw that Anne Frank documentary. That story's been told before.
Unbelievable.
How do you argue with that?
Oh, God. We should let this man get on with his life.
Yes.
And it's 112 degrees in here.
Okay, yeah, it is hot here.
And you want to say the name of your podcast?
Oh, yes. Tell us about your podcast.
I have 2 podcasts, actually. Well, 2 shows. One is on Monday nights on Sirius XM Radio, Fantasy Sports. That's Off the Wall.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I told you. I got to have a name with the walnuts, Off the Wall, That's Off the Wall. It's on Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. And that's a fantasy sports show, mostly baseball. I'm really into fantasy baseball. And I'm into baseball, period.
We'll talk about sports films next time.
Another time.
Yeah.
And then on podcasts, I am on CBS Digital, Play.it, and the show is Ipso Facto with RobertWuhl.
Right, which is a terrific show, and a lot of versatility in your bookings. Frank Luntz, John Larroquette.
Yeah, it was fun.
You run the gamut.
Luntz, it's amazing. I'm friendly with these. I'm not political much. My dad was Republican. My mom was a Democrat. I think both sides are totally full of shit. I just do. But I understand both points of view. I totally get it. So Luntz I become friendly with two conservatives, Frank Luntz and George Will. I'm pretty good friends with because of baseball. I'm a big baseball fan of both Frank and George, especially. George wrote one of the best baseball books ever, Men at Work, which is a great baseball book. And George, so those two guys, and I'm friendly with both of them. Frank's got one of the great in his house, one of the great historical memorabilia collections.
You'll have to come to Gilbert's house. He has a Lon Chaney Jr. life mask.
Did you ever know the reason why? I heard a story why Karloff didn't play the monster in Abbott and Costello.
Well, I know he felt he was through with all of it.
Had to be money.
Yeah, what?
Had to be money.
Yeah, maybe.
You don't think they didn't hit the number?
I'm guessing
because he
money.
did Abbott and Costello meet Jekyll and Hyde. So
another pretty good movie, by the way.
Yeah.
That is a pretty good movie. I like that one. That one's okay with when he turns into a mouse. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Glenn Strange was serviceable, but he wasn't Karloff.
No, he was fine.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you that's a terrific. You know why that movie's terrific? The danger's real. They didn't play the danger jokey.
They didn't make the monsters into clowns.
Right, they didn't. No, he's Dracula.
Yeah.
And it's really good, and it's well. Who directed that one?
Is it Charles Barton? Is it Charles Barton?
Charles Barton.
Charles Barton.
Yes.
He's no Jules White.
Yeah.
He's no Earl C. Kenton.
How many of those do you think Jules White? How many of those things did he do?
Jules White.
Oh my God!
You got to believe he had to do. This poor guy was dying
I
for
know,
a feature.
banging him out.
I remember hearing that one time Curly Joe DeRita, who was the last Curly, was hanging out with Emil Zitka, who was like this character actor in all of the Stooges movies. And, I now pronounce you man and wife. He had like a German. And they were hanging out together, and their interviewer said, both Curly Joe DeRita and Emil Sitka agreed that Jules White was a schmuck.
These two guys.
There you go.
By the way, you know who else I heard was a big anti-Semite? I heard at the Sky game.
Henry Ford.
Yeah.
Andy Devine.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Andy Devine. Didn't that break your heart, though?
Yes.
Hey, Wild Bill, wait for me. Jingles.
Jingles.
I always liked Andy Devine.
According to
Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
That's right.
According to Drew Friedman, Andy Devine and Clark Gable used to fuck each other.
Oh, give me a
Yeah.
give me a fucking break. I mean, let's take the premise, which I don't buy for a second, that because Clark Gable fucked everyone, that Clark Gable was gay. If he was gay, do you think
Why Andy
out of all the people there, he's got Montgomery Clift, he's got James Dean, he's got Farley Granger, he's gonna go, Jingles is the one I want to fuck. I'm gonna fuck Jingles.
Well, Clark Gable was attracted
to... Wait for me!
Clark Gable was attracted to a sense of humor.
Fucking Andy.
You might get him to buy Randolph Scott.
Ty Power I can buy. Ty Power I can buy. Tony Curtis would say Ty Power I could... Ty Power I'd understand, but not fucking Andy Devine.
See, what pisses me off is you're on first name basis and friends with all these legendary stars.
I never met Ty Power.
Yeah, I meet like actors or directors for once, and it's uncomfortable. And then I can never watch their movies again.
Yeah, we've been through that. Harrison Ford, Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
What happened with Harrison Ford?
Well, it wasn't his fault. He was nice. I was.
Welcome to part 2 with Robert Wuhl.
Tonight Show, and someone says Gilbert, and I turn around. It's Harrison Ford, and he goes, I'm a big fan. I loved you and the Aristocrats. And rather than saying what I should have said,
thank you, move on.
Thank you. Right. I'm a big fan of yours. Here he's the biggest star on the planet. And I could have said, that means a lot to me. I'm a big fan of yours. I figure I got to be funny.
Yeah,
and it's like, 90% of my life is a bad Gilbert Gottfried imitation. So I shake his hand. I go, oh, thank you. And your name is? And
Did he get it?
Either way, I'm sure he thought I was a
big pothead.
fucking asshole. Yes.
Another big pothead.
I've heard that.
Yeah, huge pothead.
I knew a woman.
No, huge
I knew this woman.
Huge. You know, it's like with Tommy Lee Jones and I would get together. They did The Fugitive. I don't think anybody was straight for 2 seconds.
I knew this
Good
woman
movie.
who owned a
Great movie.
restaurant on the Upper East Side, and she said, "Oh, you know, Harrison Ford loves my restaurant. He comes in all the time." And her son was there, and she goes, "He's a pothead. He comes in when he has the munchies."
Yeah, no.
You could have said that to him
Yes.
instead of what you chose.
I remember being when we talked. Jim Coburn used to have these great parties at his house, and me and Bill Maher and Jim would have a good time. It was great. And who was the other guy you pissed off? Who was the other?
Oh, Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, what was that about?
The
Dude?
The dude.
Yeah. I had a photo that I took as a kid of Lloyd Bridges and in Central Park. And I was waiting, and then finally I barged into his dressing room, and he was nice. He was courteous.
Was he fucking Andy Devine and we walked in?
Gabby Hayes.
You walked in, and there he is. He's fucking in. Although
He was getting
Ned Beatty,
Yeah.
another
Ned Beatty.
another anti-Semitic. Again.
Ned Beatty's an
big
anti-Semite?
story.
We were going to ask him to do the show. There goes that.
Big story.
Oh,
Big story about
what?
that.
What? Tell me.
There was a story.
I love
Charles
that.
Durning, who was as great a human being as ever lived.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard the story about Ned Beatty. And this went around, because he didn't work for a while. And I heard the story, and I said, Charlie, did you ever hear the story? And he goes, I was there. Now, Charlie Durning, you have to remember, was in the first wave of D-Day, and he helped.
Oh, yeah.
He helped, open the camps. Mm-hmm. So Charles Durning had no tolerance for any kind of discrimination or any type of stuff like that. And he said, I was there when when Ned Beatty went off and said, you tell those Jews back. He went off on the Jews, saying he was doing a movie. He said, you tell the Jews back there they can go fuck themselves. And he went off on it. So he goes, I was there for that. Now. Again, Beatty denies it, so we give him the benefit of. Well, you can give him the benefit of the doubt. But you know something he said interesting though. I watched him. I'll tell you a great story though about him. Though. He said something really interesting. I watched him on Inside the Actor Studio one time.
Yeah.
And he was talking about network.
Yes.
And he replaced an actor. He replaced the actor on network. They fired the guy who originally was playing that part. Well, what was his name? Not Beale. What was his name? Mr. Jensen.
Yeah.
Mr. Jensen. He was the head of the conglomerate. And he said, he goes, so I came in, and he goes, here's something to know. But it goes back to me saying no to the movie.
Yeah.
He said, I was a day player on network, and I got nominated for an Academy Award. He worked one day on network and got nominated for an Academy Award.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
He said, so that should, and I listened to this, I go, yeah, why I should have learned this one a long time ago. But how about that? He does the whole, you have meddled in the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale.
And I heard that Charles Durning, he was a
Great
hero. Mm-hmm. He liberated the concentration
And he wouldn't talk
camps.
about it.
Yeah. He would not say a word.
No, he would just. We played cards constantly together. I must have played with Charlie 50 times, and one of the truly. He did Arliss. I cast the whole show mostly from the card game.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was because it was Norby Walters, this ex-sports agent, music agent. He has this dollar card game. It's a dollar game. If you lose every hand, you could lose $100. You could play in this game.
That bad.
No, but it is. It's everybody like that.
Do you know how to play poker, Gil?
No.
Nobody, half the people out there don't know either. Half the people don't know either. It's more of a bullshit game. Bullshit. George Segal plays all the time, and that's where I know George from. I used to cast the whole show from the card game. By the way, another Oscar pissed me off. How about the fucking guy from Captain Phillips? The guy who was the the guy who was the
pirate.
Guy, what's that?
Yeah,
the pirate.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck are you giving this guy an Academy Award nomination?
Stunt nomination.
It's like, what the fuck? It's like you're taking a nomination away from an actor to give it to this guy with 3 teeth, and he's doing this bullshit stuff. Give me a fucking break! And you're going to spend millions of dollars promoting this guy. What is he? What? And, what is he going to do? I hear he's the next Tevye on Broadway. I hear he's going to do Tevye. He's doing the tour, the Captain Phillips tour. They're like, what the fuck?
Oh, boy. This is going to go viral, Robert.
Okay. What the fuck? Hang Nor and this guy,
Right.
and or the kid from The Sixth Sense. It's like another one. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Come on, 50 other kids could have said, "I see dead people." Come on, no fucking kids, none of this stunt shit. And have a, it's like Bill Parcells. Can the guy win a couple of games before we put him in the Hall of Fame?
Exactly.
Next
time we'll talk about sports and sports movies.
Don't get me started.
All right, Gil.
Okay.
If Robert wants to hear the end of that Jeff Bridges story, he'll have to tune into another episode.
Yes.
So what happened with Bridges?
No, he was very courteous.
Did he take a picture of you?
Yeah,
What do you
well,
do?
I kept waiting. Because he came in late. He was late.
You were meeting, this is the Tonight Show also?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he came in late, and then I was waiting outside his dressing room, and everyone kept coming in and talking to him, and Leno was talking to him. And then finally I barged in at the last second, and I said, when I was a kid, I used to go to Central Park with my sister, and he goes, yeah. And that was already an uncomfortable, like you're rushing, get to the point. And then I showed him the picture, and he was nice, courteous.
Yeah.
And he said, but I just remember it as being uncomfortable. So now Harrison Ford and Jeff Bridges, I can't watch anymore.
Oh, because you feel like there's something there.
Yeah, there was something uncomfortable. Neither one was a bad person necessarily, but
Well, the good news is that lately so you're not going to go see Star Wars.
What if you get cast in a movie with Jeff Bridges and Harrison Ford? You're not going to watch yourself?
If there's money involved.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Really? I'm with him. I'm totally
I'll
with you.
work with Al Qaeda if there's money.
Yeah, really. Which reminds me, we talked about. Has anybody heard the new ISIS podcast that's coming on later?
No.
It's like everybody's got a podcast. ISIS has got one. They got everybody. Mel ISIS is going to have.
Okay.
So, I'm Gilbert Godfrey.
Yes, you are.
And I'm Andy Devine. Ooh, ooh.
Andy, bend over so I can fuck you in the ass.
Ooh, okay, Wild Bill. Well, you're not Wild Bill. Woo! I guess now I know why you did the Misfits.
Yeah. Andy, I want to give you a blowjob.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Andy Devine. Who came up with that?
Hey.
Andy Devine.
Andy, I want you to come all over my face.
All right.
Okay. I'm Gilbert Gottfried, once again, in case you forgot. I'm here with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, at the legendary Friars Club.
Lost 12 pounds.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we've been talking to someone I've known for too long.
Yeah.
RobertWuhl.
Oh,
No, thank
come
you.
back, Rob.
Thank you.
Anytime,
We'll
anytime.
have more
Thank
fun
you.
next time. Thanks for doing it.